Siphokazi Lusithi is visiting temporary shelters which are housing flood victims in the Maydene Farm in Mthatha. The Amatole and the Tambo districts have begun the first phase of placing flood victims in temporary residential units. Newzroom Afrika's Liyema Vumisa joins us live now for an update. Liyema, good to have you on. Believe you have the MEC there with you. How has the process been going so far?
Very good afternoon to you, Thabo, and of course to Newzroom Afrika viewers as well. We understand that the MEC just got a briefing from the local municipality that is responsible for the facilitation of the relocation then of the flood victims right here in Mthatha. This is in Maydene Farm in the Eastern Cape, where we understand it's over 400 units that are expected to be erected by the end of September, at least as far as commitments are concerned. Right now joining us is, of course, the MEC for Human Settlements in the province, that is MEC Lusithi, joining us. But thank you very much for joining us. Perhaps let's start here. This is finally the time that the residents and really the flood victims of floods have been waiting for. Perhaps as a department, how grateful are you for the collaboration that has culminated into this moment?
Okay. We are completely pleasantly satisfied with how the different spheres of government have come together to respond to the disasters. We're proud of the efforts that have been made, not only by government, by civil society, by NGOs. Indeed, it's true that when hard times befall you, it forces us into unity in the true spirit of Ubuntu. But also, there have been challenges. For instance, now we are dealing with the issue of electricity, which will need a closer collaboration between the various spheres in supporting the local municipality to responding to it. When we first came here, the project was delayed. I think the one of KSD was the most delayed across the province because of the availability of land. We have been able to resolve that through social facilitation and engaging the nearby communities. We have plans because the response of the Department of Human Settlements this time around was to ensure that we relocate, and we emphasize on the relocation, so that we are not back here again dealing with the similar floods because they are reoccurring often and more often of late because of the different weather patterns. But secondly, ultimately the government response must end at a permanent solution after the provision of TRU. But in the permanent solution, the policy of the provision of the BNG housing, what you would call an RDP housing, would start to kick in, because for you to get a RDP house, you must have qualified in line with the policy as far as the quantum, your tax bracket. You must be earning less than 3.5. You must have not benefited from the housing scheme within the department. But ultimately, our immediate task is to ensure that all those that are still sitting in halls and in mass care centers and in TEAs are removed to these temporary shelters. Then together with the municipality and the National Department of Human Settlements, we look towards the permanent solution.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll get to the permanent solution in just a bit, but I just want to talk then about how you are faring as far as the people that are still placed in some of the community halls. I understand over 25 families form part of the first batch of families that have since moved in here. What's the process like? Because we see that the construction of the TRUs is still continuing here. Do you have capacity to be able to move in the rest of the other people at the halls?
Yes, the capacity is twofold. The provincial government is looking at providing a temporary residential unit for 4,700 households. With the reprioritization of the budget, we have a budget for just above 1,200. Ours is to ensure that by end of October, that 1,200 would have been relocated. We are in engagements with the National Department in order to supplement the rest. We have sponsors, for instance, DBSA has came in. There are private donors that are coming in. The process of relocating is to do an assessment of those that are in the MEC care centers, prioritizing the elderly, prioritizing those that are living with disabilities, prioritizing those that have younger kids. And hence, there is a vigorous vetting process for them to come into place. We are working with the local community comprised of the households, reps from the households that are in the MEC care centers and the immediate community to ensure that they are part of that process.
Mm-hmm. You allude to some of the challenges challenges that you have faced in terms of the construction of these TRUs and also the delays that have come subsequent to that. Perhaps let's talk about the issue of electricity here. We were in Butterworth just this past morning, the same issue there in those TRUs near Cuba location. The people, they're complaining about the fact that, yes, as much as we're happy about about the TRUs, but the issue of electricity still is persistent in some of those units. Perhaps do we have time frames of how that can be escalated and even fast-tracked to ensure that as much as they have a roof over their head, but also the basic services are catered for?
Okay. We were working with the district municipality and the local municipality to ensure that basic services are catered. There's the water, sanitation is provided. The issue of the electricity, remember, this is a disaster. It was not budgeted for by the local municipality. We are supporting the local municipality with their submission, both to provincial government through COGTA and the National Department of Human Settlements and the Department of Electricity, so that they get a budget to make the connection, because the units in themselves are tubed. It's just the issue of connection and for the municipality to get the necessary budget. The provincial government has submitted a business plan and application on the National Disaster Fund, and we're hoping once those funds come in, our intention is that when we get to the end of October and we would have completed these, there would already be headways, but we are working tirelessly in the supporting the local municipality in securing that.
Mm-hmm. I know I may be pushing with this one, but certainly I think we ought to ask it. What time frames do you have when it relates to the issue of permanent housing? I know you're still in the process of temporary housing, but certainly some of these families, they don't want to end up here for the rest of their lives, owing, of course, or referencing some other situations in other areas where they are only provided with temporary units and no permanent housing. I understand you were talking about a policy framework that kicks in. Do we have any timeframes for that, or perhaps how is that process going to vary?
Okay. The process towards a permanent solution is that we will be awaiting an application that will be led by the local municipality for the project to respond to the disaster. We'll make an application in the next financial year, included in the business plan, but the implementation of permanent solution will be a multi-year, because it will be going into an already backlog. Remember, we're looking at 4,700 families, if all of them qualify. Currently, the business plan on HSDG for the department can only afford us in this financial year alone to build 5,200. But we are hoping that they will be incrementally building a permanent solution in a multi-year project once that application is done. But we are working with the municipality in processing that application.
All right, certainly, Mr. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you get to see all of the units. Well, there you have it, Thabo. That is, of course, the MEC for Human Settlements in the province, MEC Siphokazi Lusithi. Of course, talking about a variety of issues, but at the helm of everything is that as a department itself, they are very grateful for the headway that they have made as far as the erection of those temporary units is concerned. But certainly, there's still a lot more that still needs to be done, particularly with the issue of basic services, such as electricity and also water supply. Now, she has made a commitment that by the end of October, all 400 units should be completed, and that all families that are still destitute and displaced at some of the community halls by then would have already moved in. Certainly, we are going to track that. But when it comes to permanent housing solutions, the MEC says in this current financial year, there seems to be a backlog, and that will be a stretch in terms of coming to realization.
Right, Liyema, much appreciated. Thanks for your intervention there this afternoon with the MEC in the Eastern Cape.